I define moral injury as the impact on a person's sense of meaning and values and their basic moral foundations when they're in situations where they have to violate their core values. That can come from something they did, something they failed to do, or something they witnessed.
You're raised a certain way, and you have certain values, certain concepts that you grow up to learn and understand what is right and wrong. Now, you grow up and then you join the military, all right?
The first time I actually had a human being in a peep sight, I blinked, and I thought to myself, every day of my life I've been taught that thou shalt not kill, and I'm about to end this guy's life. And I pulled the trigger. And I can tell you this, it gets easier and easier as you do it more and more. And the more you do it and the easier it gets, the worse you feel.
Moral injury is not necessarily the result of immoral actions on the battlefield. The reality is that good people often have bad outcomes. Good people who make good decisions, who make right moral decisions, sometimes experience devastating consequences.
When a person is traumatized, when events occur, whether they be in a war zone or operations other than war, that begin this process of suffering that some people call post-traumatic stress, some people call it the moral injury, I think what happens is that they are unable to accommodate this change in their worldview. And it begins this process of suffering. And everyone who has suffered knows that there are aspects of suffering that are physical, and there are aspects of it that are anguish, that are mental.
I think there can be a tendency to misunderstand the connection between moral injury and PTSD, often seeing them as the same thing, which they're not. There are a number of connecting points, but they're not the same thing.
Only since the end of 2009 that there's been an attempt to pull PTSD and moral injury apart and distinguish them because they overlap so intensely a lot of the time.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is caused by an external event over which the person has no control. Moral injury, on the other hand, is an internalized situation.
Moral injury is when you are a part of some kind of act or event that so violates your moral code that results in deep sense of shame, guilt, in questioning of oneself, one's belief systems, and what you have always known to be right and good in the world.
Moral injury hurts the most is because we feel like we've done something wrong. And we don't know how to change that because we can't change the past.
We want to ask questions like, should we have been there? Was it okay that those children got killed? What about those women who were being treated so badly in that culture? Was my leadership good? Were they, did they make mistakes? Did America make mistakes? They want to ask these existential questions and these questions that are very difficult.
Feel that they have done such bad things that they cannot be forgiven for it. That if people knew what they did, they would be totally rejected, that nobody can love them, and in fact that God doesn't love them.
Some veterans carry this to the point that they can never forgive themselves. They don't feel like anyone else can forgive them if they were ever to hear the story. Some think that even God can't forgive them. That's a tremendous weight to carry. I simply ask veterans who are experiencing this a simple question. If one of your battle buddies shared with you the exact same experience and said he had that, and said, could you forgive me, would you? In every instance, the veteran responds, of course I would forgive him. He's my brother.
The main approach for moral injury is not a medical doctor with drugs, but rather it's the forgiveness and grace of a moral authority, a loving God, the counseling of clergy and sensitive therapists, and the fellowship of a spiritual community, offering hope and help and wrapping their arms around veterans and helping them.